Hi, welcome to Module 1.4, Establishing Key People and Roles. As always, I'd like to thank Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation for their contributions to making this course possible through the project Community-Led Designs for Specialized Housing in the North. And to thank the partnership that makes this possible between Nishnawbe Aski Nation, Together Design Lab at Toronto Metropolitan University, the Faculty of Community Services at Toronto Metropolitan University, and WASA Distance Education Centre. The final part of putting together the vision for your project is understanding the project team. Like everything else in this project initiation phase, this is preliminary, but it's important to understand the structure that you'll be pursuing in order to execute the project. And we hope that this module will equip you with some strategies that will be useful in establishing your project team, some tools that can help you select the appropriate project team structure, and some definition for key roles within a construction project. As we've said throughout this phase, the primary objective is about creating clarity and reducing the opportunities for confusion, ambiguity, or miscommunication that could impact the timeline or budget of the project down the road. So, from the very start of the project, when we're putting this vision together, we should try to be as clear as we can be over what some of the key roles and responsibilities will be, as well as the expectations around communication between those roles, as that's where we see breakdown the most often. There are many people who will have an interest in a housing project, and many of those people will have different levels of involvement. We're going to get into this more deeply in the module about project engagement. At this stage, it's more about understanding who will make the decisions, who will oversee how those decisions get made, and who will execute different portions of the project. And as we're going to get into in just a second, it's as much about understanding which of those roles will be played in-house, locally in the First Nation, as well as which roles will be contracted and performed externally, and how will the relationship exist between folks within the First Nation and those who have been contracted by the First Nation. At this stage, we're talking about fairly high-level roles. And so we're going to focus on three types of roles in this module. And as we go through the construction process, we're going to add more complication and additional roles. But here at project initiation, there's really three types of roles I think we need to understand. Those are ownership and management, design, and by design, you'll see that we mean a little bit more than just design, and then contracting or construction. The first role of owner and manager is the folks who are responsible for all elements of the project. Often, in construction terms, you'll be called the client, as everyone else in the project is working for you. In this context, it's often the chief and council who assume the role of owner, having final decision-making authority over most or all decisions. And that can be different in different situations, but that's the most common. The project manager, though, is often someone different, often from within the First Nation, though it is also possible for it to be external. The project manager is the role we're learning about here, and the responsibility is really in the day-to-day activities of the construction project. And as we've noted in just about every module, it's about ensuring on-time, on-budget delivery. Design roles are often focused on the pre-construction process, though they do extend into the construction phase itself. And they can be architects or other professionals who prepare the construction documents that will be used to execute the project. And depending on the type of contract being used, and we'll learn more about contract types as we go, the architect may be involved throughout the construction process, certifying completion and ensuring the correct implementation of the design. Others who may be engaged as part of the design process are engineers or other technical consultants who provide site-specific studies or adaptations, or who are responsible for specific systems within the building. And again, when we talk about contracting and construction, there's a range of different possible relationships here, and we'll get into variations of those as we talk about contract types. But most commonly in this context, we have some kind of a general contractor relationship, whether it be based within the community or external, and their role is focused on the details of construction. So they're responsible for putting up the building and ensuring that the building that goes up remains accurate to the drawings and specifications while also remaining aligned with the schedule. But their focus is really limited here to the construction of the building. And so while it may sound like some of those responsibilities overlap with the project management responsibilities, they're actually quite different in scope. As well as part of the construction process, there are other more specific roles that will need to be filled. For example, a housing inspector. And while this role is often filled by your tribal council's technical staff, it could be different depending on your community's situation. And there will be other professionals that you may bring on along the way to support the construction. And those are usually external roles. There's no right way to manage every housing project. It really depends on the resources and capacity that are available to you, the size of the project that you're taking on, and a bunch of other local conditions. What it's important to think about at this stage is what kind of capacity exists locally. What experience is there in managing construction projects, in executing construction projects, and that will help you to determine the type of project management structure that your project is best suited to. So both on this slide and the next, I'm going to show some examples of project management structures, and this is certainly not all possible structures, but this is just to give you some examples and get you thinking about how different structures can exist and maybe thinking about which ones are most appropriate in your circumstance. So the example that I have on screen now shows a structure which relies on local labor, managed and administered by the First Nation itself, where the project manager, here called the program manager in the diagram, is responsible not only for the project execution, but also for liaising with other internal departments to the First Nation, so the finance department, for example, to make sure that the project is moving forward. In this example, the project manager is also acting as basically the general contractor and takes on a whole bunch of roles. This can be an effective way to manage a project. If your project manager, or if you as the project manager, have significant experience both on the building side and the administration side, or have a lot of capacity on the administrative side internally at the First Nation who may be able to support you. It does require quite high capacity to get the most out of all of these internal resources, but that burden may be reduced if the project that you're working on is a smaller project, and that might be a great way to build some of this capacity locally. In this slide, we see an example of a different management structure. There's less responsibility in the building project on the project manager. Instead, the project manager oversees a general contractor, consultants, and the inspector to ensure that the building project is successful. Here, the project manager plays a more administrative role. And so the structure that we see on screen may be more fitting if you don't have as much experience or capacity managing the day-to-day of a construction site, and instead allowing the general contractor to do that. And so that often means, in this context, bringing in someone external to the First Nation to do that, or hiring a general contractor from within the First Nation. But
it removes the construction responsibility from the project manager and allows them to play a bigger role in kind of oversight and administration.
Some final notes before we wrap this module on selecting a management structure. And again here, I want to highlight that the importance is not in a particular model. And what we're explaining here is that there isn't a single model that you should be following on every project. But instead, it's that everyone, and I mean everyone, needs to understand the model that is being selected and what their role is within that. Team members will need to work closely together throughout the project and ensuring right from the beginning that there's clarity and support for the model that's being selected is the best way forward. And it's really about matching what your capacity, resources are locally with the project that you want to execute. That's how you're going to find the best model, and then working with everyone who's going to have responsibilities within that model to make sure that it's clear. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next module.